It happens quietly, at major maritime choke points across the globe: the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal, the Strait of Malacca, and the Strait of Hormuz. The movement of cargo simply stops. For the first few weeks, daily life feels completely normal. You can still go to the grocery store, buy a laptop, or fill up your gas tank. Local retail inventories and regional warehouses act as a temporary buffer against the freeze on the oceans. Many people assume the system will bounce back because of normalcy bias, our tendency to underestimate a disaster simply because we haven't experienced it before. In the beginning, the public frequently misreads the situation as a temporary labor strike or a repeat of the 2008 financial crisis. In 2008, the problem was consumer demand. People stopped buying things, so factories slowed down. But a total trade halt is a supply-side failure. The intermediate parts required to build modern goods don't just sit in a warehouse waiting for a buyer. They cease to exist at the assembly line. This lack of early panic is a symptom of how hyper-integrated we've become. We have forgotten that our daily survival relies on a fragile, continuous circulatory system that has just been severed. The first critical domino to fall is energy. With the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, the resources of the Gulf states are immediately isolated from the rest of the world. This visualization shows the result of that closure. Roughly 20% of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas, or LNG, is instantly removed from the market. Asian economies, which receive 80% of these flows, face an immediate and insurmountable energy deficit. The secondary shock hits the food supply. Modern high-yield agriculture is dependent on nitrogenous fertilizers, which require natural gas as a primary feedstock. This chart tracks the connection between energy and food. Without those imported chemical inputs, global crop yields are projected to fall by 15 to 37% within a single growing season. This drop is particularly severe in regions with nutrient-poor soils. The lack of fertilizer causes output to plummet, triggering immediate famine in the world's most vulnerable agricultural zones. Total self-sufficiency is a deadly illusion. A nation cannot simply eat local when the chemistry required to grow that food is trapped on the other side of the world. While agriculture starves for chemistry, the technology sector starves for silicon. This makes Taiwan the ultimate choke point of the 21st century. Taiwan produces over 60% of the world's semiconductors and 90% of the most advanced logic chips. This level of extreme high-precision manufacturing cannot be rapidly reshored or replicated in another country. Without new chips, downstream industries freeze, automotive manufacturing halts, data center expansion stops. Even the massive capital investments in AI infrastructure become inert without the hardware to power them. Then, the physical logistics network infects the commercial layer. International trade is finance-intensive. It relies on banks to provide the credit that keeps goods moving. When the ships stop, banks face extreme uncertainty and immediately freeze lending. This liquidity drought forces heavily export-reliant developing nations into immediate sovereign debt defaults as their primary source of foreign currency disappears. The silence of the trade routes destroys the foundational trust and credit required for global commerce. Even if the physical ships were permitted to sail again, the financial mechanisms needed to load them would remain broken. By the end of the 12-month mark, the global system is left to assess the total wreckage. This chart shows the projected impact of 1 year of autarky. Models estimate a global GDP loss of 27 to 40%, dwarfing any modern recession. This deprivation breaks the social contract. Unrest causes an additional 1% GDP reduction, creating a self-perpetuating cycle of decline. These losses are not temporary. A year of severed supply lines and sovereign debt defaults destroys the diplomatic and financial trust required for hyperglobalization. According to historical models of trade after conflict, world trade does not return to pre-war levels for a decade or more. The world that emerges is defined by functional sovereignty. Instead of a single globalized market, nations reorganize into regional trading blocs like the USMCA or the African Continental Free Trade Area. These groups trade within more trusted, localized circles that prioritize security and resilience over cost efficiency. The year-long silence of the trade routes proves that a system optimized for the lowest price is also optimized for the highest risk. The world that survives will be poorer and more isolated, but it will be built to withstand the next collapse.